Hey, welcome to DVR Club Plus, where we talk about things a little more rambly style. That's Alex McCown. I'm Josh Modell. We're here to talk about the elephant that was not in the room or even in the same zoo.
Nope.
Last week, we got so excited talking about the death or non-death of Glenn, and Alex told me I was crazy, and then the internet told me I was completely sane.
Oh my God, the internet backed you so hard.
Thanks, internet.
I should have known that a crazy theory, who would have seen that coming, that the internet backed an insane theory?
Well, not only did the internet back this insane theory, Scott Gimple, showrunner, backed the theory, basically. Greg Nicotero backing the theory. Those guys are giving interviews being like, well, we're not saying he's dead, and then we did everything very deliberately, and so clearly what everyone thinks is that those were Nicholas's guts, and there's no way that Glenn is dead.
Yeah.
You're admitting that now, right? You're admitting.
I mean, I have to, because the evidence is so overwhelming that they are pulling some bullshit.
Yeah.
Because that was my whole argument is there's no way the show would be so lame as to do some sort of bullshit he gets out alive thing.
Yep.
But apparently the show has bent over backwards to make sure that's exactly what happens.
It's funny, there was a Wall Street Journal blogger who said the same thing as you, and the article reads so funny like a few days later now because it's just like so sure. Like there is no way, this show would never do that. That is not happening. He is unequivocally dead. Like, yeah, he's alive.
Whoops.
He's alive. So I don't know how much time we want to spend on that. What's funny though is so we talked about this, and then yesterday these are filmed in advance, people, a little bit. We usually get the episodes on Thursday.
Movie magic.
And then we film them on Friday and show them to you on Sunday, because we're not supposed to talk about these things publicly until after the show is aired, behind the scenes. So I'm talking too much, sorry. Yesterday the screening link shows up in my email box on Wednesday, early in the day, and I was like, oh my God.
You got so pumped.
I gotta see how Glenn got out of this, because I know he's alive, and I'm thinking like maybe angels came down and picked him up, or like a dinosaur grabbed him in his jaws.
Maybe a literal Deus Ex Machina where God operates a crane and like lifts him up.
Could be that. Could be that too. Or Nicholas, it was just like a flesh wound when he shot himself in the head, and he saves him. Anyway, so I put everything aside. I gotta start watching this right now to see what happens. And what happens is
we get 90 minutes of Morgan.
You say that as if you're sad, though.
I'm not sad at all. I mean, let's come back to that.
Okay.
We get 90 minutes of Morgan. We get basically the Morgan origin story, or at least the new Morgan origin story, right? What's happened since the very beginning of the series to the point we're at now, where he's rejoined our team and is apparently on a new mission of peace and not killing people.
Well, good for him.
Yeah.
Or something.
I mean, good for him. Because it actually is. It is a great episode.
It was a great episode. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, really sort of artful. Interesting, well done, suspenseful. It was like its own little movie in the middle of The Walking Dead. So the realization that I was not going to find out about Glenn was mitigated by this really good episode. And I assume that they knew they had something special here, and they knew they could sort of put it right in this spot, and that people wouldn't be too pissed because they get a really good hour and a half of TV.
I think you're right about that, because I think they knew, right, that this was a great episode, and that if you're gonna make us wait a week or possibly more on finding out what happened to Glenn, you better give us something awesome in exchange. And
I should say it might be more. One of those interviews, I can't remember if it was Nicotero or Gimple, they said, you'll know by the end of the half season whether Glenn is alive. So we might have to wait, this is episode 4 we're talking about. There's 8 episodes in the half season. We might have to wait another month.
I'm just going to directly take this opportunity to speak to Scott Gimple and
he's talking to you, Gimple.
People. This is not how this works. You don't get to do this. You don't get to string us along for weeks. That's not what a fun, good, great show does. That's what a show that's trying to do some sort of bullshit like trick nonsense does.
Who Shot JR?
Yeah, that's some Who Shot JR bullshit. Only even less so, because there was a season in between, but at least the very next episode you found out.
That's true. Like sometimes them Duke boys, they're going to be going over a canyon and then they cut to commercial, but after the commercial if they
you can find out whether them Duke boys landed or not, or whether the car just continued on into the stratosphere.
I can't imagine them not addressing the Glenn and the following after this Morgan standalone episode. But Morgan is really, even before this, was a pretty interestingly drawn character. Yeah. And this gives him a whole life and gives our new character, Eastman, a pretty interesting story as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd sort of talked after the second episode about how this was sort of shaping up to be the season of Morgan, and this episode really reinforced that. He's really become a central player going forward now. And yeah, his meeting with Eastman, aka John Carroll Lynch, right? Noted character actor.
Where do I see? Is he the husband in Fargo?
The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
I think that's the only place I really recognize him from.
I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He always seems to pop up in weird little roles as like, the cop who's sick of the shit or, that kind of thing. But he's great here.
Great. And interesting choice, although I guess you kind of probably knew it going in, knowing this was a Morgan origin story. Can't get my mind off Glenn.
A Morgan story.
A Morgan story,
Yeah.
that he was probably not going to make it to the end of the episode. I had some hopes that he might, and I thought the way he died was a little, not the way somebody like that might die. But
that was the weakest part of the episode. That was how he died. Because it literally, this man who's clearly a master of Aikido, rather than just docking the zombie out of the way, goes, "Move, Morgan," and pushes him back in this very sort of florid manner that exposes his back and lets him get bit.
The first thing I thought is like he could have just made a lot of noise and the zombie would have gone for him instead because Morgan was completely still, but I guess that would not have accomplished killing him, which is what we needed to do to send Morgan on his journey.
I mean, I suppose you could ideally look at it as sort of a Obi-Wan Kenobi scenario where he wants to get struck down so that he can be more powerful in Morgan's mind than the zombie could possibly imagine.
So wait, is Eastman going to come back as like a ghost when the Ewoks are there?
Yeah, when they're doing the yub yub dance at the end of The Walking Dead.
Had to check.
Yeah.
But very cool story, like very sort of comic booky story in a way. The whole story of Eastman, like he's this lone guy living out with his pet goat and
Tabitha.
Tabitha. Taking care of walkers, taking care of business. He's a vegetarian. Puts Morgan in this cell, which we learn later why he has a cell built into his cabin. But I thought it was very, it's an hour of screen time, for this guy basically. But an interesting life drawn. And I think that's a really cool thing for Walking Dead to do. Usually if you learn that much about a character, you're going to live with him for a couple seasons, whereas this guy was kind of, obviously his purpose was to shape the Morgan that we met at the end of last season.
Yeah.
But they didn't give him his story short shrift.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that was really artfully done. It reminded me in some ways of some of the best episodes of Lost when they would give a significant backstory episode where, the whole point of how did this character get to this point in time, especially in this case, I think strengthened by having that season 4 episode where Rick had gone back and found Crazy Morgan, right, when he was living in the building by himself, being totally nutso. So to know that he went from there to where we are now and fleshing out, I think this very naturalistic, very sort of, I suppose you could argue that it gets a little hippy-dippy at points.
It's very convenient that the extremely crazy person meets the forensic psychologist out in the woods.
Yeah, who's also a master of Aikido.
Yeah, well.
And the art of peace. But yeah, no, watching Morgan come back from that, I thought that actor did a great job. The way that they used the fisheye lens, right, to early on when he's being crazy Morgan and shoving sticks through people's throats and stuff.
Sure.
And then the way that actually, you have that great moment when he's starting to be swayed by Eastman and the zombie comes in to kill the goat and he goes out and it starts to go back to fisheye lens and he starts to be crazy Morgan. Then he looks at the goat, which I thought was kind of a great way to pull him back and realize.
Fisheye lens is like crazy rage cam.
Yeah, rage cam. Yeah, exactly.
Rage cam.
I think it was a nice way to, both visually show that journey without making it seem hokey, and also give us sort of a way in to see how he could conceivably come back from being that nuts, because he was super crazy.
Yeah, and we almost lose him again at the end.
Yeah.
When he goes back to his, what's the opposite of a happy place? His angry place?
The angry place.
The clear place.
The rage cam place.
But then, I guess it takes the death of Eastman to really put him finally completely on his journey.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the bookends of the show? So we see him at the beginning, in the present, and he's just full of rage, and you think he's about to give it up and kill somebody. And then we meet, of course, the guy that he didn't kill a few episodes ago.
Yeah, that we were definitely wrong about that, because we both, I think, agreed that he had 100% killed that guy.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I guess, if you don't see him die on screen, he's not dead.
Yeah,
kind of like Glenn.
What we're starting to learn.
Walking Dead.
But yeah, I think when he comes back to them, and that's great, because you see Morgan is clearly trying to have an Eastman moment, right? He's bound up the guy, he's tied his hands, he's like, look, here's my entire story. I just told you my life story. This took about 90 minutes. Nobody else has bothered us in the town during this time, which is very handy. But you get that whole thing, and you get the guy sort of being jokey with him, and you start to see, oh, maybe he is pulling him back. And then that guy just delivers that line where he says, if I get free, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill anybody you care about. I'm going to kill everyone else in this town, women and children alike, because that's what I do.
So, I know I'm probably going to die. But if I don't, I am going to have to kill you, Morgan. I'm going to have to kill every person here, every one of them. The children, too. Just like your friend Eastman's children. Those are the rules. That's my code. Let's say I'm sorry. But you said it, right? Don't ever be sorry.
So we're learning more about the wolves, that the rules are just fucking kill everybody, I guess, except each other.
Exactly. Again, I think this strengthens it's some sort of crazy cult theory.
Totally.
And that, right, because he even says to Morgan, he says, that was your own words, was don't ever be sorry for your own belief system, your own ideology.
Yep. So, is this setting up Morgan for death at some point, and that he's not going to be able to kill, or is it going to set him on a path to kill people? Sorry, I'll ask another question and answer them all, and then you never get to talk.
Perfect.
It's great.
Yeah.
I thought it was telling that Eastman actually had one line where he said he met all these people and none of them were evil, but one was evil.
Yeah.
So is Morgan gonna make an exception to his non-killing rule for truly evil people?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Does this whole cult, in a sense, because let's just call the wolves a cult, do they represent that one true evil, in a sense, right? If he meets one guy who's truly evil, can this be an entire group of people who are evil, and can Morgan accept that?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a lot of the sort of moral dilemma going forward, is whether or not this idea can extend beyond that, and whether or not Eastman was right. Because he says, I came to believe all life was precious, and so he went and turned himself in after he killed...
tried to turn himself in.
Yeah, after he killed the guy who killed his family, because he was psychotic and probably deserved to die, frankly.
Yep. Yeah, I'm no judge, but yeah.
I like the southern accent you adopted for that.
I didn't mean to.
I'm no judge.
But all judges are from the South.
Yeah.
Well, the hanging judges.
Hanging judges, yeah. And so I think the question you're sort of left with or that Morgan's going to be faced is, was Eastman right to kill that guy? Whether or not he should turn himself in afterwards is kind of a moot point. But whether it's right to take out the truly evil.
Did you think he was going to kill the guy at the end?
I couldn't tell. I assumed he wasn't going to, just because we had devoted the past 90 minutes to him learning how to not kill people.
Right.
But yeah, I think for me the bigger moment was the one where he walks out and then he stands in front of it and he decides to lock the door. Because that was the whole point, was the cell was open the whole time that he was in.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be a little more clean of a cap on the episode of him just killing the guy and being like, "That's it, I'm done with that now."
Coming around to Rick's way of thinking.
It's a new world. Eastman got to live out where there were really only zombies attacking him.
Yeah, and only one or two a day, it seemed like.
Yeah,
he had a real easy time of the zombie apocalypse.
Making cheese.
Yeah, disgusting cheese apparently.
Oat burgers, and he got there with the cheese eventually. He liked some.
Oh, that's true. He finally,
studying his Aikido.
Reading The Art of Peace.
Yeah, he had a pretty good life.
Yeah, and and that's one of those things, again, it's almost like Eastman doubles as this allegory for Alexandria in a way, where it's sort of, no, there's a better way. We can be more peaceful. We can have a community. We can all be calm and sing Kumbaya together. And then along comes Rick into your life to be like, nope, if you want to stay alive, you don't get to do that. Alexandria, you have to start carrying guns. Morgan, you don't get to not kill anybody.
Yep.
That's just not how life works for us.
Yep, old Rick. Well, before we go, we should actually talk about Rick too, because those interviews, those spoiler-laden interviews, one of those guys said, essentially, "Don't worry about Rick, he's fine." He did. He's trapped in the RV, surrounded by zombies. Hey, he's fine. He's not on top of a dumpster with a psychotic dude, so he's fine.
See, again, this whole thing where the show needs to rely on their showrunners saying things about it outside of the narrative of the show. That means you're not doing your best storytelling, guys. I'm sorry to break it to you.
You know what? It's been a really good season so far.
It has been.
I am forgiving the Glenn is alive officially right now. I know it's a cheat. I was never as angry as you were.
You're the Eastman to my Morgan.
I'm going to teach you to let go. But if you attack me, I'm gonna beat you up, and then I'm gonna put you back in the cell.
You're gonna redirect my anger.
I'm gonna redirect your anger. I'm gonna give you a goo-goo cluster.
Oh, I'll appreciate that.
And then someday you'll learn not to beg your friend to murder you. So all the time. That's the potent quotable. We'll end on the potent quotable.
Yeah.
Kill me!
Yeah,
With
yelled
the
a good 8 or 10 times over the course of the episode.
Kill me! Kill me! Kill me!
But yeah, I think that's about it. So you can look forward to coming back next week when Josh has calmed all of my anger and we both just sit here and say the exact same things.
Well, we'll be like, oh, so he's alive, so here's what happened. Actually, let's put some Las Vegas odds on whether in that next episode we find anything out.
Okay.
Or if he's just gone for a couple episodes and they're searching for him.
If they're going to drop some bullshit in interviews, like, you'll find out by the end of the season, I'd say that puts it at less than 50% chance that we're going to find out next episode what happened to Glenn.
Yeah. I think it's maybe an episode or two where they're like, where's Glenn? Well, we got to find him. There's no way that he's a zombie even though he's attacked by 1,000 zombies. That's not possible. Maggie wouldn't let him do that. Say bye to Greg and Scott, and thanks for not killing Glenn. I'm glad he's not dead.
I'm glad he's not dead. I'm angry. I'm going to be angry at the way it happens because I already know that however they pull it out, it's not going to satisfy me.
Maybe he starts biting the zombies and they turn back into humans and save him.
That would satisfy me. I take everything back. Go for it, Scott Gimple. We'll see you next time, guys.